Okay, well, this episode will go out after the fact, but today's Halloween, so happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
2 questions. So I brought a little Halloween decoration for us today. I have to admit, I bought that via Instagram, and I thought it was going to be a little bit bigger than that. And then it showed up, and I was like, oh, that's like a munchkin thing.
I hope you didn't pay too much.
No, I didn't, which is, it should have been the first clue. Like, I don't remember what it was, but yeah, it was pretty inexpensive, and so it is what it is. But that's our Halloween decoration for today.
That's great.
Is the Colts gear Halloween related, or should we save this?
Well, they are pretty scary right now. No offense to all the Colts people out there, but we are Colts fans. I'm wearing this shirt and have the Colts mug here in honor of my good friend Terry Wade, who passed from cancer, and this was her shirt. So
there you go.
I thought it would be inspirational to wear it today. Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll get into Terry's story and your story here in a little bit. So at the time of this recording, it's Halloween. Everyone now knows, or certainly but when this goes out, will have known, have a quarterback change up.
Yep.
It will be very interesting when this episode releases, let's say it's a month from now, what the situation will be and how our Indianapolis Colts will look at that point in time.
I agree.
In addition to the Colts, we both went to the same undergrad university. That would be the Indiana University, folks.
Exactly.
As of this recording, we are 8-0.
100%.
Can't believe I'm saying that.
I know.
I'm ecstatic. Were you at the game last Saturday by chance?
I wasn't, but of course watched.
I've been to a lot of IU football games, good, bad, and everywhere in between. There was something about last Saturday. Granted, the weather was perfect. College game day was there. It was a packed house, legit packed house, and it wasn't like because of Ohio State fans. There was some feeling over us, especially those of us who've been there for 10, 15, 20 plus years, that it was hard to describe. Like it was I don't want to say it was emotional, but it was really just gave you such a good, warm feeling of like, wow, we have a good product in the field. People are genuinely happy. There's a ton of people here. It's the third or fourth quarter, and we're all still here.
Yeah.
Like it was just awesome.
Yeah. The people even go into the games. I mean, we used to go, but we'd tailgate and sometimes didn't make it in.
Right. And so Coach Sig, I think it's been great. He said it up front because that's what he has to say, right? Like he has to say the things that he did. But he also admits, like, look, we have to win.
Yeah.
Winning pretty much cures everything. And, well, now we see.
Yeah.
I will be very curious. Again, we're 8-0. We play Michigan State this Saturday at Michigan State.
Yep.
We have 4 games left in the season. When this episode releases, where will the regular season be over with or not by then? I'm not sure, but I'll be curious to see where we're at. And now here's the crazy thing. Like I'm cautiously optimistic still, very happy with where we are, but I'm also a realist. When I start hearing the conversation that's going on rampant right now about the college football playoffs, I'm like, are we still talking about IU football? I don't know. I understand there's a lot of things going on about the bias. Like, so if they finish 10-2, does a 10-2 Indiana Big Ten team versus a 10-2 SEC team, like who gets weighted heavier? That's a whole other podcast probably.
I mean, I don't even think we're ranked in the top 10 yet, right? Weren't we 13th?
We are not.
Still?
So one of these podcasts or one of these clips I saw was about that.
Yeah.
He felt we were being slighted there because not only the ranking, but then it delved into looking at postseason and wherever we finish up and where they prognosticate we need to be in order to actually make it and all that stuff. And I don't know, that's for those folks to describe.
Podcast.
But yeah, just the fact that we're in that conversation is crazy.
I know.
And I'm excited. The NIL and the transfer portal are like double-edged swords, and I can't imagine being a college coach of any sport because you're basically re-recruiting your team almost every single year. As if it wasn't hard enough to begin with. So let's focus on this year, and then when this year's over, then we'll see what happens next year. And I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy every moment and live in the minute that we've got right now.
Absolutely,
this is just unheard of.
I will give this. So I know Scott Dolson relatively well, athletic director at IU. Kudos to Scott on this hire. I didn't really know much about Kurt Cignetti before the hire, and everything I've seen so far. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I love what he says. Google me.
Right. Exactly. Is this thing on? Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Summits Podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Happy Halloween. At the time of this recording, it happens to be Halloween. It's probably going to be closer to Thanksgiving when this actually releases. But thank you for joining us. If you're joining us on the Heroes Foundation YouTube channel, thank you for doing so. If you haven't subscribed, hit the little subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to dress up in costume. We would greatly appreciate it. Hit that little notification bell icon when you do so, because that'll notify you when new episodes like this one drop. And if you're listening to this podcast, wherever you get your podcast, thank you for tuning in. All right, guest today is a new Heroes Foundation board member and current Lilly employee, Nicole Rule. Nicole, welcome to the Summits Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We touched on the Colts outfit. We touched on the fact that it's Halloween today. But outside of all that, why don't you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. So I'll try to do it in a length that's appropriate.
Okay.
I won't start with how much I weighed when I was born, but I probably will start back a little bit. So I was born in Indianapolis, and
nice.
My father was a federal prosecutor and moved to Indianapolis from Boston. So it was kind of foreign territory for my family here. But they eventually moved just north of Greenbrier so that we could end up in the Carmel school system. Yep. So graduated from Carmel, had a great experience there. Was very fortunate to be a cheerleader in junior high and high school, and I love sports, as we just discussed. So, and I do believe cheerleading is a sport.
Yes, I've learned that. My wife was a cheerleader at Purdue, and I've learned that very quickly. Yes.
Yeah. So my daughter is now starting in her cheerleading career, and but she also plays basketball, so I feel like she balances it well. Yeah. But so grew up in Carmel, and then, as you said, went to IU. I was pre-med there, fully intended to be a physician, joined a sorority there, and unfortunately bombed the MCAT and did not live out the lifelong dream of both me and mainly my parents of becoming a physician, but also had a backup plan and took the GMAT and went to business school following that. And so still have the love for science, but moved to Boston and went to school out there to get my MBA. When I was in undergrad, I had the great fortune of working on a lot of different places, trying to bolster kind of my resume for medical school. And so I worked in a medical and molecular genetics lab at IU, and we did paternity testing and genetic testing for alcoholism. I think one of our paternity tests went to the Ricky Lake show. So
funny you say that. So a little sidebar here. My wife is a med tech, and I don't have any details other than they also did some paternity testing.
Yeah.
She has a couple of, as you may as well, has some very interesting stories.
Sure. Yep.
And one that stands out to me is two individuals, man and woman, came in, did the test. He's not the father. Leave. I don't know, the next day, 2 days later, whatever. She comes back, different dude, test. Also not the father. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can relate. We had many of those stories. But I loved the science of it, and that was a lot of fun. And then I also worked, though, at a general clinical research center in Boston during one of the summers. And so I got to live in Boston that summer. Yep. I lived with my Nana, who my papa actually passed away the day that I was moving in, which was, kind of serendipitous the way it all worked out. Sure. So I got to live with her that summer, and I just fell in love with Boston. I've been there many times because that's where my family lived. Mm-hmm. But so when I applied for grad school, it was a good option for me to move back there. Okay. And I went to a school that had a co-op program that kind of got my foot into the door into the pharmaceutical industry. And my co-op
was big in Boston as well.
Yeah, yep. Big in Boston. And so Abbott had bought this small little company called MediSense. So I worked there. Okay. And at the end of that, they offered me a position, but they said, you really should try and carry the bag sales.
Yeah. This is post-MBA?
Post-MBA. Okay. If you really want to work in the pharmaceutical industry and just to kind of get your feet wet. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, the place to do that is Lilly. And the reason why I thought that is growing up in Indianapolis, a lot of either my friends' parents or the people in our neighborhood work for Lilly. They all seem like great people. They seem like they had nice careers. And so I applied for a job thinking they would move me back to Indianapolis and maybe I'd get to work on something like Prozac. But that didn't happen. They gave me a job in like women's health, like osteoporosis in Boston.
Right.
But it was a great experience. And now I've been with them, almost 25 years.
Which is pretty impressive because we're only 27.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They hire them young. So I've moved with Lilly several times. In one of the times that I moved back to Indianapolis, I was introduced to my now husband from one of my college friends. We were pre-med together. She's an OBGYN up in Carmel. Okay. She introduced my husband and I. We were actually both at their wedding, but with other people.
Sure.
And so when we were both single, she and her husband introduced us. And he is both a realtor for Tucker, and then he now works for Homes by Design, and they built some really cool houses up in Zionsville, in I think it's called Holiday Farms up there.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So some neat stuff there. So we have 2 kids. Fertility was not in our favor, so it's funny where we're at right now is actually just down the street from where we did fertility treatments.
Culver.
Yep.
Yep.
So we had our daughter, Dr. Culver, through IVF, and then after many rounds of that not working for another child, we ended up adopting, and we have a 7-year-old son. His name is Xavier.
Nice.
And then we have our 12-year-old daughter, Gabby. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. We know Dr. Culver as well.
Yeah.
So
we're very thankful for him.
We are, yes. Well, that's good. So 2 kids, Indy native, via Boston, or have some connections with Boston. Certainly, that's cool. When you graduated from IU, did you go straight to MBA school, or was there any time in between? You did?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of unusual.
Yeah, a little bit, but
yeah, I was like 10 years younger than everybody else in the room. So you asked me.
Probably good.
Yeah, you asked me, do you go by Nicole or Nikki?
Right.
And that was the defining line, is I'd always gone by Nikki. And then when I was in grad school, we were sitting in these big leather comfy chairs, and the professor's like walking up the steps, and I have the tent card in front of me that says, my legal name, Nicole Droger. Right. And he said, Nicole, what is the T-bill? And I'm like, I don't even know what a T-bill is, and I don't really go by Nicole, but I was too intimidated to correct him. Yeah. So I don't know. From there on out, I've been Nicole, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
I started, I'm a junior. Growing up, I was always Vinny because my dad was Vince.
Yeah.
Got to college and said, okay, I'm going to roll with Vince, but everyone else still knew me as Vinny, and well, now it's just kind of a mishmash, and I answer to all the above and sometimes worse. All right, cool. So let's talk a little bit. You've been with Lilly for a long time, about 25 years, which is phenomenal company to work with. Great partner of the Heroes Foundations. What you've had probably a lot of different roles there. What you're doing now, obviously, is closely related to what kind of we work on. To the extent that you can share, what are some of the things that you guys are working on in the area that you're working in, and what do you like about it the most?
Yeah, great. So I have to give my disclaimer that anything I'm about to share here is my own personal views and not that of Eli Lilly. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I moved from some of the other therapeutic areas where I'd worked in neuroscience, diabetes, women's health, into oncology. And I loved those other therapeutic areas. They were amazing. And oncology has just been a completely, even a different experience than I was expecting, and really life-changing. I think anybody who's been touched by cancer obviously knows that, but I think being able to work in it every day is just fuels me to get up in the morning. Yep. So currently, I work on a team called the Beacon team, which stands for Broadening Enrollment in Oncology Clinical Trials. Don't try to match up the letters because they don't match.
We've already talked about that. Yeah.
But the reason why they formed this team is because, unfortunately, as it stands today, and this is published out in the literature, only about 7% of people living with cancer enroll in oncology clinical trials.
Yeah.
And there's a variety of reasons for that. But we think that clinical trials are an excellent way to, get care. Obviously, it advances the science, but it's great for patients and it's great for the science. And so the goal is really, how do we overcome some of those barriers that exist? Mm-hmm. And it's not just obviously one thing. It's going to be a million things that are going to improve that. I think the other piece to that too, when you think about that 7% number, is a lot of times clinical trials do enter into the conversation for people with cancer, but it's not until we've run out of options. And I think that's also unfortunate, because there's some great first line, second line studies out there where can that conversation be brought into the conversation earlier?
Yeah, there's no question clinical trials are absolutely critical. This is going to sound weird. I was kind of one of the lucky ones, if you will, where my first cancer diagnosis was a type of cancer that had a relatively high, or has a relatively high success rate. Mm-hmm. But the very first article I happened to find online was published literally the year I was born. And before I realized that, I was reading those numbers, and the numbers were not that great. Mm-hmm. So from 1972 to 2001, some would say, oh, that's a really long time. Well, in the drug discovery world, that's not really that long of a time.
Yeah.
But it had been improved drastically. So that's great. And it only got to that point, I'm sure, via clinical trials.
Exactly.
Same type of deal today. There are types of cancer types out there that still don't have a great success rate, and the current therapies are constantly being evaluated to improve the chances.
Yep.
Or even, for some therapies that are out there that might have a high success rate, they also put you through the ringer and could cause a whole bunch of other issues.
Yes.
So I know you guys and others are working on therapies that, how do we still maintain that, say, that 90% success rate or higher, or whatever the number is, but doesn't negatively impact the patient as much.
100%.
And I know that's a combination of things. And so I'm not in your world.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, maybe I should be, but I think about it's a pretty exciting time, because right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, you still have some kind of old school therapies that still work great.
Yep.
Obviously, you have some new ones, and then you have the whole new realm of immunotherapies that are really game changers. And it's not just going from this to this, but it's also combining the two and like everything in between. I just think holy crap, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of promising things.
Yeah, 100%. And none of those things happen without advancing the science through clinical research. And so I think too, for patients, we're so thankful for patients that are willing to enter into clinical trials. Sure. But I also think that, when you look at some of the myths around clinical trials, especially as you think about like phase 3 clinical trials, where we're measuring the efficacy of the drug. Okay. We also want to make sure that it's giving patients a good quality of life, to your point, around the side effects. It's those trials really give us the opportunity to advance the science, to move from things like just chemotherapy into adding on other things to that, to your point. And one of the other additions that we've seen in the science lately, obviously, is biomarkers. And we have precision medicine that will target certain biomarkers, and we're finding more and more biomarkers, and we call them then actionable biomarkers, meaning they're druggable. We can give you something. I think that probably back in the day, I'm not an oncologist, but I would imagine it was probably pretty frustrating, and why would you even test to find that patients have certain biomarkers if you had no medicine to actually treat it? And so that's been a big advancement. In addition, I think you just look at the trial designs of phase 3 clinical trials, and the control arm, people think, oh, placebo. What does that mean? You get standard of care in most control arms. So a lot of times in the treatment arm, you get the standard of care plus whatever they're testing. Not always, but I think that's such a great benefit for people to at least be knowledgeable about as they're making these decisions.
Sure. So I'm going to ask you a question that's going to show my ignorance in this world. Can you, in layman's terms and somewhat briefly, describe, are there typically 3 stages of clinical trials, more or less, and then probably subsets of those?
Yes.
But how do you identify stage 1, 2, and 3? What's really the differentiating factors?
So I would say just the biggest between like 1 and 2 versus 3, because I'll kind of lump 1 and 2 together, is really in 1 and 2, you're testing to see the safety of it and the tolerability of it, maybe the dose of it. And then phase 3, you're really looking to see, is it more efficacious than this current standard of care?
Okay.
And so we have primary endpoints that are around outcomes of, is the patient better off?
Yeah.
And
that takes time.
And that takes time. And they take years and years. They take years to enroll trials, and then the patients need to be on the therapy for years. So the process is very long for us to advance the science. But the more people are informed about it and make decisions potentially to be in clinical trials, or even healthcare professionals to talk about it or to open up sites, those are things that will continue to help us. And then, of course, the advocacy groups have been amazing at advocating for clinical trials where appropriate and helping patients find them.
Yeah. I had a question the other day about us. Why did you guys pick the name Heroes Foundation? And there's a variety of ways of answering that. But I think one of the definitions of heroes for us is those individuals who signed up for a clinical trial and went into it with the attitude like, you know what, this may not save me. It might be my only shot, and I'm going to do it regardless. But it may not save me. But whether it does or doesn't, I hope that my experience translates into some sort of results that you guys can take and then help the next person down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean that if that's not a definition of a hero, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things I learned when I worked at that General Clinical Research Center in Boston is, unfortunately, a lot of times the trials didn't work. And I hate to say that because I want people to think about clinical trials, but when you say they didn't work, it actually does in some regard, because we learned something. The physician that I was working with there, he said, we always learn something, even when this trial doesn't work, that helps us improve the science for the next patient, for the next trial.
Right. Correct. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mean to say it didn't work, but
you know
what I mean.
That's what we say.
Okay, correct. All right, so you know the premise of the podcast. What's your cancer story?
I'd like to share just a little bit about my friend. Her name is Terry Wade. We call her T. Wade. Okay. She moved to Indianapolis probably in 2008, but she'd already been working for Lilly, and I met her kind of working through Lilly. At one point, she reported to me, which was a little awkward, but I was glad when she didn't. But we became really good friends, and we formed this group of girlfriends that we call girlfriends. Yeah. And there's about 8 of us. And, you have the group chat. You call each other by your maiden last name kind of thing. Still to this day. I don't even think I know a couple of my friends' married last names. But she became the glue that kind of held us all together. And I don't think we fully appreciated that until years later. So I met her in 2008. We bonded a lot over the Colts. She loved the Colts, even though she wasn't originally from here. And I loved that about her. She had red hair. She was fiery. She was sassy. And in 2011, she was promoted to a business director position out in Boston. Okay. And so she moved. And I remember, the good thing about Facebook, I don't actually remember. I looked on Facebook. Is it said in 2011 in May she moved to Boston, but a group of us got together at the Rathskeller, and we posted some pictures from that, and she wrote on there, "This isn't goodbye, let's just call it we'll see you later." Sure. And that still sticks with me today. So she lived out there, but you wouldn't know it. She was here for everything. I mean, she didn't miss a baby shower, a wedding shower. She attended my wedding in Puerto Rico. She was at our kids' birthdays. I mean, she just never missed anything.
That's awesome.
And she was just like a ray of sunshine. Everybody loved her. So in October of 2019, I think that was the last time she came to Indianapolis, and we saw her. We were all at a friend's house and doing a get together, and I've got great pictures from that with her and my kids. And then soon after that, she got engaged. And that was wonderful. She met a great guy, Rod, and we love Rod. And then they bought a house. And during all of that time, though, COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So, like, right after that. So she got engaged. They bought a house. It's sucked because it was, like, COVID. So we celebrated her 50th birthday. I think you know Laura Lamb.
Yeah.
Laura set up her 50th birthday virtual party with a DJ and dancing and the whole 9 yards. It was great. And then I would say it was 2021 around Easter. I think it was maybe even Easter. She sent us all a text, but let me back up a couple days before that. She was sending us text messages like, I've got a really bad headache. Does anyone know how to? And, we're all trying to cure her headache with all of our different ways in which we do that. And then it was a couple days later, she sent us a text and said that she was in the ICU. And it was kind of, her description of what was happening didn't make a whole lot of sense. We're like, what's going on? And then come to find out, she had gone to an urgent care. Rod took her to an urgent care for this really bad headache. And it was, again, kind of during COVID. So they COVID tested her. They didn't even let her come in until that was okay. And he told me, or she told me, I can't remember, that she chewed like a whole thing of gum. Something must have like sparked that in her, that she had this desire to like chew gum. And they sent her over to the hospital after that and found a brain tumor. And so she got diagnosed with a glioblastoma and had the tumor removed immediately. And that's why she ended up in the ICU. She told us, we do a lot of like conference calls with our girlfriends, just trying to, especially during COVID, we had to, how do you stay in touch? Yeah. So she got the 8 of us on a call and she told us. And I mean, I will say my girlfriends are like the most optimistic people. Like, we will cheer you up. You're looking for a job, you're going to find a job. You don't feel good, you're going to feel better. I mean, everybody kind of just cheers each other up. And there was a lot of cheering up. And I remember thinking, gosh, it's like, you almost know too much.
Mm-hmm. GBMs are not good.
Yeah. The survival rate, not great. And, I went to Dr. Google and looked it up, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've come up with some new things. I don't work in the brain cancer world, so, but it didn't look good. And then I remember my parents told me they knew some woman who went to Johns Hopkins, and she had a glioblastoma, and she's still alive today. And so, like, that gave me, like, a glimmer of hope. Right. But Terry was awesome. I mean, she went through chemo, radiation. She went to work every day. She did not let that slow her down. She still continued to perform at a really high level and won all kinds of awards and accolades. She was one of our highest performers, kind of in this elite group of business directors that we acknowledged every year. We always made videos that they would share at like her awards nights when she would win awards. And so then I would say it was Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day of 2022. So that would have been what's Mother's Day, May. Yeah. Rod was like, it's not good. You guys should come out. So Laura and my friend Lori all went out there, and I think other girls went out there even prior to that, and we kind of went in small groups, and that was really hard. Yeah, I'm sure it was. She just didn't look like herself, and she was just, as since it was towards the end, it was just hard for her to like do anything. But I mean, I'll treasure those moments. We had tie together. My kids made some like Play-Doh because they heard that she likes to like play with stuff with her hands. Sure. So brought one of my son's fidget toys, brought some Play-Doh. Yeah. Lori brought some pictures that we all went through, and it just was kind of like, I don't know if she's in there, and I don't know if she knows what's happening. And then we made some joke that's probably not appropriate to share here, so I won't. Something like some kind of sexual innuendo type of joke, and she gave us this smirk, and we're like, yeah, she's still there. And that was like her way, I think, of just like, it's okay. And so a couple weeks after that, she passed, and I'm so thankful that I got to at least kind of say my goodbyes.
For sure.
I'm also very thankful for Rod, her fiance, who took amazing care of her. I have a mother that has Parkinson's, and she's in a wheelchair, and my dad takes care of her while also being like a federal judge at the same time. And he also has a caregiver. But like seeing caregivers take loved ones to the bathroom and things like that, and they're so incapacitated, it just shows you how much love they have for them, and what that really means. And Rod, I'm so thankful for Rod. I know he gave her the love that she needed at the end. She also has this amazing dog, Piper, that would like sleep with her, and she was such a dog lover. So that was really special. But he let us know that she had passed, and it was about a year after she had been diagnosed, which is, I mean, unfortunately, pretty standard. Yeah. One of the other things, I mean, I think, you know, she's somebody that's always, as I described, was always there, ever present, even when she physically wasn't there. And I still feel like that today. I think of her often when I see a Jeep. She loved Jeeps. Peanut M&Ms make me think of her. Wine, beer, everything makes me think of her. She's
good combo.
Yeah. She was a fun girl. And the day she died, I had to travel that day to a meeting, and I was texting with one of her really good friends that I hadn't seen in several years, who lived in Tennessee. And I let her know, her name was Coco, and that's her nickname. I let her know that T. Wade had passed. And just so happened, I said, where are you at today? She said she was traveling to a meeting, and I said I was traveling too. It just so happened that we both had a layover in the Atlanta airport. And the Atlanta airport's like one of the largest airports in the world. Crazy
time.
And it just so happened that our flights landed, our layovers were like the next gate apart from each other. Haven't seen this girl in years, and we said nothing. We just saw each other and just embraced. And I just know that like Terry brought us together. And my faith is really important to me, and I feel like for her too, I think she's in a really good place, and I feel like she's still with us in so many regards. And her spirit kind of pops up from time to time. So she has had a tremendous impact well beyond her time here on Earth. And she was recognized at Lilly for achieving the highest honors. And they have an award now, the Terry Wade Award, that they give out every year to the highest performer. And I think that just embodies who she was. I mean, how many people go through chemo and radiation and then like still go to work? Right. And she didn't have to, but she wanted to. She cared so much about the people she worked with and the patients that she was helping, and she was just one of a kind. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Terry sounds like a phenomenal person. I'm sorry you had to have that experience. It sounds very similar to an experience that I've had with a high school buddy of mine, also diagnosed with GBM, and the story you told about telling her that joke and then seeing an actual reaction, like, okay, she caught that. He was already in hospice, and we were visiting him there, and we knew, we were on the last legs there, and wasn't really responsive, but I can't remember the exact what we were joking about or whatever, but his foot kept popping out from the blanket. And so, I don't know, we had this natural reaction to help cover him back up. And he like literally would fidget or do something to kick it back off again. And we're like, I'm not going to say what we said, but like, dude, like, I think he's doing this on purpose. Mm-hmm. And finally someone said it, but it's like cracked something else. And you had like something in his face, just kind of this wry little smile, like, mother trucker. He is. He's still there.
Yeah.
And sadly, it wasn't too long after that unfortunately Dave passed. But and then just literally a year ago or so, had a fraternity brother, another fraternity brother, who's a year older than me, also GBM. So I'm
sorry to hear that.
More familiar with GBMs than I should be, and they are definitely one of those cancer types that we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot being done, but it's very difficult because of where the tumor's located.
Yep.
I'm not a surgeon or a physician by any means, but have heard many a story from them about how difficult they are and what complexities exist in fighting that battle. And that's why we keep doing clinical trials, because it's 2024 now. It may not get solved in our lifetime, but in our kids' lifetime, GBMs will still exist.
Yeah.
But will we have a better treatment protocol to improve the odds? I hope so.
I hope so too.
That's why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Exactly.
Well, on that note, let me ask you this. I think I know the answer, but what triggered you? There's a lot of causes out there.
Yeah.
A lot of causes in the cancer space. Some local, some national, etc. What intrigued you about the Heroes Foundation enough to say, hey, I want to get involved?
Well, I think besides the fact that I've gone to your gala, which is it?
Yes. Whichever.
Many times, and I would
thank you for that.
Yeah, I would definitely advocate for anybody who's looking for a good night. That's a good time.
January 25th, 2025, 25th anniversary.
Yeah, it's
going to be easy to remember.
It's going to be awesome. I don't know if you're going to do it at the JW
Marriott,
again.
downtown Indianapolis. Yeah.
They'll take Taylor Swift down and put up the Heroes.
Kidding, T Swifty.
They got Taylor Swift on the building right now. I'm thinking maybe the Heroes Foundation would look really cool on there.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Probably cost a little bit of money, but I think that besides that, in all seriousness, I think I look at your three pillars, one of them being research, and that is really intriguing to me. And I think that it combines my passion around the fact that I think research is so important. And I think about for Terry, one of the things that we did talk about is, gosh, can you find a clinical trial? And as she and I talked about that. One, she didn't want to leave her physician, which is one of the barriers. Most patients in America don't have access to clinical trials in many places. Yeah. And people don't want to leave their oncologist, which I totally understand. So how do you make those trials more available to patients? Right. And then when she did start to think maybe a little bit more about it, it was so far down the line that being able to qualify for a trial is really tough. And so I think that my love for Terry and being able to try to make an impact, not anywhere near what she has done. The Heroes really combines my passion and my love for her and my love for the fact that I think we need to try to figure out how to remove barriers to more research and to help patients see the opportunities there. It just was kind of a perfect marriage.
Great. Well, I'm glad you used the word passion, because passion plays a huge role in whatever you do, whether it's volunteering for an organization or in your work. Someone also recently asked me, as we're doing a lot of talk about the 25 years, be like, oh my God, I can't believe it's been around that long. Like, I know. And one of a handful of questions I usually get over the last 6 months has been, how have you stayed so involved for those almost 25 years now? I mean, like, businesses or nonprofits are started every day, and some of them last a long time. Many of them fizzle out after 2, 3, 4 years. It just is what it is. How have you not only made it this long, but how have you, me personally, continued to stay so engaged in 24 years? Because a lot of people be like, okay, I've done my duty, I'm out.
Yeah.
And aside from maybe having a screw loose, which is not super debatable, it comes down to grit. Chuck Pagano, former Colts coach, and I've talked about grit a fair amount. And then he recommended a book. It's called Grit, which I recommend anybody. And they define grit as basically the combination of passion and persistence. So passion plus persistence equals grit. And it totally resonates with me, because that's what it's taken. But when I hear passion, that kind of goes into that realm of like if you're passionate about something, it's not really viewed as work. It doesn't feel necessarily as work. So when I hear you say that, I'm like, that's awesome. That's what we want. We don't want people involved that are just yes men or yes women. That we want people who want to truly come in and roll up their sleeves and say, okay, what work needs to be done and how can I help do it?
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's great.
So thank you for that.
I think it's something that I almost describe it as something you just can't turn off. I think when my husband and I walk the dog at night and I'm like still talking about clinical trials and he's like, enough. Like you can talk about something else now, but I feel like there's such an opportunity. I can't turn it off.
There is a huge opportunity.
Until we start to see meaningful progress in some of these areas, like how can you turn off the passion?
Right.
And so, I love that grit. I'll have to look it up.
So 2 things here. So the passion piece for me, how does that get reignited over and over again over 24 years? And really it's simple, although not a great answer. When I hear new stories, even of people that I don't really know, it ignites me. So one example of the last 2 years, a friend of mine that I went to undergrad with at IU, her daughter, 24 years old, maybe she's 24 now, maybe she's 22 then, but either way, early to mid-20s, New York City, never smoked a day in her life, diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. I heard that and yes, I was sad, but I was so pissed.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to run through a brick. I could have run through a brick wall. I was so just enraged. And it's stories like that, and there's been too many to count. That's what keeps my fire burning.
Yeah.
This isn't about me.
Yeah.
This isn't about other old stories. They all kind of combine, but they keep getting fed.
Yeah.
So that furnace just continues to get stoked, and it's like it drives me nuts. Going to the research piece. When we first decided to get into research, we knew it takes millions or billions of dollars, right? We're a smaller local nonprofit. If we have 10, 25, even $100,000, like in the world of research, like that's nothing. But when we decided to go into it, we said, okay, let's talk to researchers. Let's talk to people who know more about that world to say, hey, we think we want to do this, but what's that 25 grand at that time we're going to do? And they're like, actually, that's huge.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. Now tell me why.
Yeah.
How? Because I'm not thinking it's like nothing.
Yeah.
It's huge because Dr. So-and-so has an idea or a hunch.
Yeah.
They don't just go get $2 to $5 million just off, an initial hunch. They got to go prove stuff out.
Yeah.
That takes time. It takes money. It takes resources of various kinds. So they said, Vince, you like business? I said, yeah. They said, well, you know what an angel investor is? I said, yeah, of course. Like, that's what you guys are. You're angel investors, no pun or intended or not, investing in Dr. So-and-so's hunch. And that 25K is absolutely paramount because it allows them to actually go after it. Well, there's a lot of doctors with hunches who never even get to the point where they can even play around with the idea.
Yeah.
And then, and this proved itself out in, I think, our second or third gift to a researcher. He happened to be on the pediatric side, but he proved out that hunch, and then I can't remember what the time span was, but then went on to get like a $2.5 million grant.
It's amazing.
And like the return on that, I didn't think, I was like, oh, that's cool, but the actual feeling we got, we're like proud parents, like, oh my God, that is awesome.
As you should be. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so to give you a little board example, and I think I've shared this on other podcasts, so apologize if it gets a little old, but I don't think it gets old ever. That same researcher, so we did it, and he thought he had uncovered and proved something out, was going after these huge grants, and so we're like, that's awesome. Before he was awarded it, but we said, hey, I'd like to, and he was super, obviously, this is his baby, super passionate, super excited. He goes, I want you guys to come and see what we're doing. And we're like, okay. So the board came in, went into his lab, and he started explaining all this stuff, and I think he could tell, like, I understood the first sentence, and then after that, I was like, whatever. He's like, he paused, and he's like, come here. So we go back in this back room, like the office part of the lab, and he gets the biggest computer monitor he's got, and he kind of turns it so we can all kind of see it. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna put the slide in. And he puts a slide in, and you see these cancer cells. He's like these little, like, I think pink or purple dots. Like, these are cancer cells. I'm like, okay, great. He goes, I'm gonna inject this therapy, this combination therapy that we've been working on, and it's gonna look, I think, blue coming in, some other contrasting color, and just watch what happens. It looks like a video game.
Yeah.
Like, literally look like a video game. All of a sudden, these cancer cells kind of like tremble a little bit and swell some, and then explode. And we're all like, aha. Like, it looked like an old school Asteroids game.
Yeah.
And then, like, the most lay person could watch that, like, I'm sold.
I get it.
Like,
yeah.
Where do I sign? Like, what else do you need from us? Like, that was awesome. And that's what fuels it. That's what keeps it going. And so now, if you look at the state of Indiana alone, that's what we're focused on, because you can only do so much. But obviously, we have a company like Lilly here, one of the major pharmaceutical players in the world, research institutions. Naturally, you think, no offense to others, but you naturally think of IU because it's School of Medicine.
Yeah.
But here's something I didn't even know until just in the last handful of years. Purdue, as much as we joke back and forth and have this banter on the athletic field between IU and Purdue is doing cancer research in West Lafayette.
Yep.
Notre Dame is doing cancer research in South Bend. And I'm like, holy crap. You have, again, no offense to the Ball States, Butlers, et cetera, all the other schools in the state, 3 major universities doing cancer research. So naturally, I asked the question that I know has been asked before. Yes, on the athletic fields, we're all competitors, and we want to, banter about that. But you have 3 major institutions doing work. How do you all work together? How do we make this a 1 + 1 + 1 = 5?
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician, I know. And they said, well, Vince, in some of those areas, we actually are doing that already. I go, that's awesome. Because I know how there can be competition there, not just the athletic side, but competition for dollars, competition for who came up with the discovery, whatever the case may be. And there's egos involved, like there is everywhere. But because IU has a School of Medicine, they have to rely on that for certain things. So Purdue is working with IU in that realm. Notre Dame's working with IU in that realm. They're all kind of working together. Could it be better? Probably. Yeah. But just knowing that we have 3 major institutions doing work, and I'm like, okay, here's our challenge, guys. We need to be better at the Heroes Foundation needs to be better at what we do so we can better partner with those folks.
Yes.
So on behalf of the Heroes Foundation, thank you to Lilly for continuing to be a partner with us, because without that partnership and partnerships of several others, we can't continue to look at some of the research projects right here in the state of Indiana that are about to be done, if not already being done, and continue to promote those, and seeing who knows how those can then work themselves back into the
100%.
Private sector, and then you never know what happens from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've spent a lot of time talking about kind of these phase 3 randomized placebo-controlled large trials, but it's got to start somewhere, and it starts in a lab. And I heard one of the Purdue researchers recently at a conference talk about their preclinical work. I mean, it's amazing. And that preclinical work is critically important so that we even have phase 1, 2, and 3 studies. So it's so awesome to hear how Heroes is making an impact there.
Well, we're happy to have you on board. We're happy to know that your addition is going to make a greater impact for us, and then a greater impact for all of the Indiana cancer community. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
And thanks for coming in today and sharing the story about Terry, but also talking to us and just sharing about your experience and allowing us to get to know you better.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank all you guys for tuning into this episode of the Summits Podcast. We thank you all for joining us from wherever you get your podcasts, or again, for those of you tuning in on the Heroes Foundation YouTube channel, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Happy Halloween, belated Halloween, because by the time you guys see this, Halloween will be long gone. As we approach Thanksgiving, if this comes out before Thanksgiving or ultimately into the holiday season, we hope you all have a great holiday. And don't forget, folks, beat cancer.